Hello, and welcome to Buddha Light Podcast. The Buddha once said, "Not complaining is also a form of spiritual practice." At first, this teaching may sound quiet, almost ordinary. It doesn't carry the same drama as deep meditation or the chanting of sacred verses. Yet, within its simplicity lies a profound strength. Many people think spiritual practice is something done only in temples, sitting cross-legged in silence, reciting long sutras, or performing rituals. These certainly have their place, but the heart of practice begins not with outer actions, but with the state of our mind. And one of the most powerful ways to train the mind is by letting go of the habit of complaining. Why complaining weakens the mind? Think for a moment, what happens when we complain? It may start small, about the weather being too hot, the traffic too slow, the people around us not behaving as we wish. But each complaint plants a seed of discontent. That seed grows, making the mind restless, resentful, and easily disturbed. Complaining is like adding drops of ink into clear water. Slowly, the whole bowl becomes murky. Even if life gives us beautiful moments, we can no longer see them clearly because the mind is clouded by dissatisfaction. When we stop complaining, we're not pretending that life is perfect. Instead, we are learning to see clearly without letting negativity dominate our thoughts. The difference between complaining and expressing truth. Now, it is important to clarify. Not complaining does not mean suppressing our feelings or avoiding necessary action. If something is unjust, we can still speak up with wisdom. If we experience pain, we can still seek help. The difference lies in our attitude. Complaining is repeating negative thoughts without offering solutions. It drains our energy and spreads heaviness to those around us. But expressing truth with clarity is different. For example, if our body is unwell, we can calmly say, "I need rest," instead of repeating, "Why am I always so unlucky?" Not complaining does not mean silence. It means choosing words that heal instead of harm. How not complaining becomes cultivation. Let's imagine daily life as a long path. Along this path, stones and branches will block our way. If we spend all our time kicking the stones and cursing the branches, our journey becomes miserable. But if we simply notice them, step over them, and continue walking, we save our strength for the path ahead. In the same way, each time we resist the urge to complain, we are training patience. We are strengthening mindfulness. We are cultivating compassion because we stop burdening others with unnecessary negativity. Little by little, the mind becomes lighter, calmer, and more peaceful. This is true spiritual practice, happening not in some distant retreat, but right here in everyday life. Complaining versus cultivation. What disturbs the mind? What is complaining? It may appear simple, just words of dissatisfaction. But if we look closely, we see that complaining is really a state of the mind. It often sounds like this: I give too much and I receive too little. Others don't understand me. Life is unfair. All of these carry the same root, a sense of imbalance. In Dharma terms, this imbalance comes from craving and aversion, two forces that constantly pull the mind out of peace. When expectations don't match reality, the mind begins to struggle. That struggle becomes resentment, and resentment quickly turns into blame. And what happens then? Suffering spreads. It does not stay contained in the person who complains. Like smoke in a room, It fills the space and affects everyone around us. Think of it this way. Imagine carrying a small bowl of water. If the water is still, you can see your reflection clearly. But the moment you start shaking the bowl, the water ripples and the reflection disappears. Complaining is like shaking the bowl of the mind. It makes it impossible to see clearly. Instead, we see distorted images, and from that distortion, suffering grows. True cultivation begins right here, not in temples, not in distant mountains, but in the simple awareness of our everyday reactions. Cultivation means calming this restless mind. It means pausing to ask, what am I really expecting right now? What am I resisting so strongly? Most of the time, our expectations are invisible burdens we place on others, expecting them to act in ways that match our desires. When they don't, frustration arises. Similarly, our resistance is like pushing against a locked door. The more we push, the more we exhaust ourselves, yet the door does not move. When we stop complaining, it doesn't mean that problems vanish. Life will still have challenges, pain, and change. But what changes is how we hold these experiences. Without the constant noise of complaint, the mind becomes quieter. And in that quietness, we begin to see things as they truly are, not through the lens of what I want or what I dislike, but simply as they are. This is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom is not something far away. It's not only for scholars or monks. It begins when the mind rests in clarity. Not complaining is like opening a window in a dark room. The light does not come because we force it in. It comes because the obstruction is removed. In the same way, when we put down complaint, the natural light of understanding shines through. This doesn't mean we must never express difficulties. If something is unjust, we can act. If something is harmful, we can speak. But there is a difference between speaking from wisdom and speaking from complaint. Complaint arises from restlessness and attachment. Wisdom arises from clarity and compassion. Every time we catch ourselves about to complain, we are standing at a doorway. One path leads to the habitual cycle of blame and dissatisfaction. The other leads to calm awareness, to a mind that says, this is how it is. Now, how can I respond skillfully? This small shift is profound. It is the seed of liberation planted in the soil of everyday life. So the next time you feel the urge to say, why me? Why is life so unfair? Pause for breath. Notice the stirring of the water in your bowl. Choose not to shake it further. In that moment, you are already practicing the Dharma. That is what it means to transform complaining into cultivation. Bearing labor and blame, the two pillars of inner strength. When we think about strength, most of us think about carrying heavy things or working long hours. Physical labor is not easy, but it is something many people can endure. A farmer bends over in the fields from dawn until dusk. A construction worker lifts and carries until his muscles ache. A mother wakes up in the middle of the night to care for her child, day after day. These are examples of labor, of effort, of the body being tested. And yet, when we look deeper, we often find that the body is not what breaks down first. What is much harder to bear is not physical labor, but the weight of blame. To be misunderstood, criticized, or ignored. This cuts more deeply than sore muscles. It touches the heart. It disturbs the mind. Think of a time when you worked hard for someone, perhaps at your job or for your family. You gave your energy, your time, maybe even your health. And instead of gratitude, you were met with complaints or silence or harsh words. How did that feel? The tiredness in your body may have been bearable, but the heaviness in your heart was much harder. In monastic life, this is very common. A monk or nun may rise before sunrise, spend the entire day sweeping, cooking, chanting, teaching, and yet they may still be blamed for being careless, for not doing enough, or for making mistakes. In lay life, it is no different. A father works late hours to provide, but his children may feel he is absent. A mother sacrifices her own dreams, yet her family may not even notice. We give so much, and sometimes it feels like nothing is returned. This is where Dharma practice begins, not in the easy moments, but in the difficult ones. To labor without recognition and to accept blame without anger is not weakness. It is a form of strength. It is the kind of strength that builds patience, humility, and resilience. In Buddhism, we often speak of paramitha, the perfections that lead us toward wisdom and compassion. Among them is the perfection of patience, known as kshanti paramitha. Patience is not simply waiting quietly. True patience is the ability to face hardship, criticism, or injustice without letting hatred take root in the heart. When someone speaks badly of us, and yet we keep our mind calm, this is patience. When we are exhausted, but do not allow resentment to rise, this too is patience. A wise teacher once said, "Carrying burdens strengthens the body, but bearing blame strengthens the heart." If we reflect carefully, we can see the truth in this. Life will always present us with both labor and blame. One tests our body, the other tests our mind. Together, they are like two pillars. They support the building of inner strength. Without them, the structure of our character would remain weak and unstable. So the question becomes, how do we meet these challenges? Do we resist, complain, and let bitterness grow? Or do we take them as opportunities to deepen our practice? Each time we endure with patience, we are polishing our heart, like a stone being smoothed by the river. It may feel difficult in a moment, but over time, the rough edges are worn away, revealing clarity and peace. The next time you feel unappreciated or wrongly blamed, pause for a moment. Instead of reacting, breathe deeply. Ask yourself, can I use this moment to train my heart? Can I let go of the need to always be seen, to always be praised? This does not mean allowing others to mistreat us endlessly, but it does mean we can choose not to add anger on top of pain. We can choose peace over resentment. In this way, both labor and blame become our teachers. They guide us toward humility, toward compassion for others, and toward a wisdom that sees beyond ego. And slowly, we find that the strength we build is not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Layperson's path, serving family without complaint. For most people, the path of practice does not unfold in temples or monasteries. It unfolds right at home, in the ordinary rhythm of daily life. If you're a layperson, your home is your monastery. Your family, your colleagues, your children, and even your parents. They are your fellow practitioners and your teachers. Think of all the small tasks that fill a day. Cooking meals, washing dishes, paying bills, going to work, helping a child with homework, or taking care of an elderly parent. At first, these may feel like chores, heavy responsibilities that take away your time and freedom. But in the light of Dharma, they are not burdens at all. They are opportunities. They are the ground where your practice becomes real. When you cook with mindfulness, you're not just preparing food, you are nourishing life. When you clean your home with care, you're also sweeping away inner restlessness. When you go to work and earn a salary sincerely, you're not only supporting yourself and your loved ones, you are practicing generosity and responsibility. The difficulty arises when our heart resists. We may think, why must I always do more than others? Or, why is my effort not appreciated? Resentment builds when we compare. But Dharma reminds us, do not compare your path with others. Some may be lazy, some may be irresponsible, but that is their journey. Your practice is your own. Serving your family without complaint is not weakness, it is strength. It takes more courage to give willingly than to give grudgingly. If your heart is willing, even hard work feels light. If your heart is unwilling, even a small task feels unbearable. This is why the Buddha taught that liberation does not come from escaping life, but from transforming the mind within life. Karma, at its simplest, means cause and effect. Every action plants a seed. When you take responsibility, whether it's caring for a sick relative, supporting your children's education, or simply keeping harmony in the household, you are planting wholesome seeds. These seeds mature into inner peace, resilience, and trust. It is like cultivating a garden. If you tend the soil with patience and water it regularly, flowers will bloom in time. But if you neglect the garden or fill it with complaints, weeds will take over. In the same way, your attitude toward family life determines whether your heart grows in peace or in bitterness. Remember, the greatest offering to the Buddha is not incense or flowers, but the transformation of your own heart. And for lay practitioners, that transformation often takes place in the kitchen, at the office, in traffic jams, and in the quiet, unseen efforts you make every day for those you love. So when you serve your family, do so without complaint. When you work, do so with sincerity. When you give with a free heart. In this way, your ordinary daily life becomes extraordinary practice. Step by step, this is how the self is cultivated. Monastic life, training in the Sangha without ego. When one enters monastic life, there is often a quiet expectation that it will be a place of peace and solitude. Yet in reality, a monastery is a community. Everyone has a role to play. Some monks or nuns take care of the kitchen. Some look after the temple grounds. Others are entrusted with teaching, guiding, or administrative duties. And of course, there are those who simply follow the daily schedule, sitting, chanting, studying, and serving as part of the collective rhythm. At first glance, these roles may appear different in weight or importance, but in truth, none is higher and none is lower. Each task, whether sweeping the floor or leading a meditation, is part of the same fabric. Each is an opportunity for training the mind. A simple example, a novice who cleans the toilets every morning may learn humility and patience in ways that the abbot giving a Dharma talk cannot. And the abbot, while teaching others, must learn to let go of pride and remember that his role is also service, not status. Elder masters often reminded us, relying on the Sangha helps us cultivate better. What does this mean? It means we do not practice alone, nor do we try to carry the burden of training solely with our own effort. The Sangha, the community, becomes like a mirror. When we live with others, our hidden habits are reflected back to us. Our impatience shows when things don't go our way. Our pride surfaces when we think our ideas are best. Our laziness is revealed when we compare our efforts to those of others. In isolation, it is easy to imagine that we are calm, disciplined, and wise. But in community, the truth of our mind is exposed. This is why training in the Sangha is so powerful. It is not always comfortable, but it is deeply transformative. If one is entrusted with leadership in the monastery, this brings its own training. Leadership is not about exercising authority. It is about learning to serve with humility. A good leader is like a pillar, strong, reliable, but not drawing attention to itself. Leadership in the Sangha means thinking of the whole community before oneself. It means listening carefully, making decisions with compassion, and not allowing pride to separate you from others. When your thoughts revolve around the collective, when you consider, how can this benefit the community? How can this support harmony? Then your ego naturally softens. In this way, the monastic life constantly challenges and refines us. It teaches us to set aside the small self, the narrow me, and instead rest in the larger field of we. This is the true meaning of monastic training. It is not about escaping the world, nor about personal achievement. It is about learning to live in harmony with others, to polish away selfishness, and to embody the Dharma together. Just as many drops of water become one river, many individuals become one Sangha, flowing together toward awakening. The root of affliction, understanding anger and misunderstanding. Why do we complain? Why do we raise our voices, sigh in frustration, or feel that heaviness inside? So often, it begins with a single feeling, the sense of being misunderstood. Maybe we worked hard, but others did not recognize our effort. Maybe we spoke with good intention, but someone twisted our words. Or maybe we simply wanted kindness, but received indifference instead. On the surface, we might say, they don't understand me. But beneath that surface lies something deeper: anger, frustration, or unmet expectations. We tell ourselves, I deserve better, or why can't they see my point of view? These thoughts churn inside the mind, disturbing its stillness, just like ripples spreading endlessly across a pond. This is the beginning of affliction, what Buddhism calls klesha, the mental disturbances that cloud our clarity. If we wish to practice the Dharma, we must look deeper. Instead of staying caught in complaint, we gently turn the mirror inward. We ask, what am I really holding on to? What am I afraid of losing? Sometimes it is recognition. Sometimes it is pride. Sometimes it is simply the longing to feel loved. When we begin to ask these questions, we are already stepping onto the path of awareness. This is what the Buddha called right mindfulness, sammasati. Right mindfulness does not mean forcing the mind to be blank or silent. It means being aware of our thoughts and emotions as they arise, like watching clouds drift across the open sky. We see anger appear, but we do not immediately follow it. We notice frustration stirring, but we do not let it control us. We observe without judgment, without adding fuel. In this way, understanding becomes like a lamp in a dark room. It does not destroy the darkness by force. It simply reveals what was hidden. And in that gentle light, the root of our affliction begins to loosen. For example, imagine someone criticizes you unfairly. The first reaction may be anger. They are wrong. They don't see my effort. But with mindfulness, you pause. You ask, why does this upset me so much? Perhaps you realize you are clinging to the need for approval. Perhaps you see that their words touched an old wound in your heart. The moment you see clearly, something shifts. The anger loses its grip. You are no longer enslaved by misunderstanding. Instead, you gain freedom, the freedom to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. This is not about suppressing emotion, nor pretending to be unaffected. It is about recognizing what is real and gently transforming it through awareness. When you understand the root of your affliction, it begins to dissolve naturally. Like ice melting under the warmth of the sun, the hardness of anger softens. Compassion flows more easily. Patience grows naturally, and the heart becomes lighter, more open, more at peace. So the next time you find yourself ready to complain, pause for a moment. Listen within. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to? That simple act of turning inward is already a step toward liberation. Because true freedom is not when the world finally understands us. It is when we understand ourselves. Karma and responsibility, the foundation of real practice. Karma is often misunderstood. Many people hear the word and immediately think of something mysterious or even superstitious. But in truth, karma is not about unseen forces waiting to punish or reward us. It is far simpler and far more practical. Karma is simply the natural law of cause and effect. Think about planting a seed. If you plant a mango seed, you will not get apples. If you water and care for it, you may one day sit under the shade of a mango tree, enjoying its sweet fruit. If you neglect it or poison the soil, the seed will wither before it grows. Our thoughts, speech, and actions are just like those seeds. Each one plants a cause, and in time, each cause bears fruit. This is why the Buddha taught, when we act with wisdom, compassion, and clarity, we plant good causes, and the natural result is peace and joy. But when we act out of anger, greed, or laziness, we plant seeds of suffering, which eventually ripen into confusion, regret, or pain. This is not a matter of fate, nor is it someone else's doing. It is the working of our own mind and choices. Whether you are a monastic dedicated to the path or a layperson managing family and work, this truth applies equally. We are each responsible for the garden of our life. And this responsibility is not a burden, it is a liberation. Because once we recognize that we are the gardeners, we stop blaming the weather or our neighbors or the passing birds. Instead, we focus on the seeds we plant today. When we do not understand this, we fall into habits that trap us. We slack off, and life becomes stagnant like a pond with no flow. We complain, and the mind becomes muddy, unable to see clearly. We wait for someone else to fix our problems, and in the waiting, we grow resentful. All of this is unnecessary suffering. The Buddha's teaching is direct. Do not waste your energy on blame. Do not waste your life waiting for others to save you. Each moment is an opportunity to plant a new seed, to shape a new cause. Every act of kindness waters the roots of peace. Every moment of mindfulness clears away the weeds of confusion. This is why the blessing we reflect on this year is so important. Abide in right mindfulness and cultivate the self. Right mindfulness means being aware of our thoughts, our words, and our deeds, not with harsh judgment, but with steady clarity. It means noticing. Am I planting seeds of peace or of suffering? Am I acting with responsibility or with carelessness? To cultivate the self does not mean to become selfish or self-absorbed. It means to take full responsibility for one's own heart and mind. It means to live with the understanding that no one else can walk this path for you. Teachers can guide you, friends can support you, but the steps must be taken by your own feet. This is the foundation of real Dharma practice, not grand rituals, not waiting for miracles, not empty complaints. It is the steady, patient, mindful cultivation of causes that lead to freedom. It is the willingness to say, I am responsible for my life, my mind, and my actions. And when you live this way, something changes quietly but profoundly. You stop feeling powerless because you understand the power of cause and effect. You stop clinging to resentment because you see that blame is useless. And you begin to experience a simple, deep joy. The joy of knowing that with each mindful choice, you're shaping a life of clarity and peace. So let this blessing be a reminder to us all. Abide in right mindfulness. Cultivate the self, and trust in the natural law of karma, the law of cause and effect, that what you plant today is what you will harvest tomorrow. Daily diligence, sincerity in every task and interaction. Spiritual practice is not something distant or dramatic. It is not waiting for a special place, a holy ritual, or a sudden flash of enlightenment. Practice is already here in the simplest details of our daily lives. It is in how we speak to others, in how we choose our words carefully. It is in how we act, even when no one is watching. And it is in how we treat those around us, with patience, with understanding, and with kindness. Every task becomes an opportunity to practice. Washing a bowl, answering a message, finishing your work, each can be done with mindfulness. Every person you meet becomes your teacher, whether they bring you joy or challenge you with difficulty. The real question is, how do we respond? Do we respond with awareness, or do we fall into old habits? One of the most common habits is complaining. Complaining about work, about people, about circumstances. Yet when we complain, we close the door to practice. Complaints turn the mind outward, always searching for someone or something to blame. But Dharma invites us to turn inward, to observe clearly, and to understand cause and effect. Complaining is easy, understanding is harder, but only understanding brings peace. Think about it. When we complain, does the problem become lighter? Does our mind feel freer? Or do we end up carrying even more restlessness inside? Complaining is like scratching a wound. It may bring momentary relief, but it makes the injury worse. Instead of complaining, we can choose diligence. We can choose sincerity. We can take responsibility for what we can do and accept with calm what we cannot control. Daily diligence does not mean pushing ourselves with force. It means doing each small thing sincerely. It means speaking with care, thinking with clarity, and living with honesty. In this way, the restless mind slowly becomes tamed. Complaints dissolve because we are no longer feeding them, and in their place, gratitude grows. This is the true path to freedom. Not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through steady, mindful living. When we stop wasting energy on complaints, we discover a deeper energy within us, the energy of presence, clarity, and compassion. Thank you for listening and reflecting together. May we all continue this path of sincerity and mindfulness in our daily lives. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the Buddha Light Podcast.